Premier League and football fans. Welcome to Unite for VAR. Why is the mainstream media protecting the PGMOL? As a football fan, did it ever strike you as strange that referees escape any serious public scrutiny? When last did your Premier League broadcaster, either at halftime or post-game, do a detailed analysis of how the game was being refereed? Do they educate the public as to how the style of refereeing is having an impact on the game? The answer, quite simply, is no. This is despite the well-known fact that referees in the Mike Riley era are encouraged to indulge in game management rather than issue yellow cards for reckless tackles. Mark Halsey, in his book, revealed that the big stakeholders in the PL don't want their star players punished by suspensions for being out of line. In fact, Mark Clattenburg, the referee, was the one who suffered most after that infamous game between Chelsea and United some years ago, when Obi Mikel and others wrongfully accused him of racial abuse. Halsey advised that the stakeholders in the PL who own the PGMOL lock, stock and barrel want the game refed in a certain way regardless of the rules. It is clear from the data over the past 5 years that PGMOL referees have been instructed to keep their cards in their pockets for all but the most egregious tackles. The result is teams and players who are less technically accomplished than their opponents are inclined to do the perfectly rational thing under the circumstances, kick and foul their opponents and disrupt their passing game without the risk of being red carded out of the game. You would think journals and pundits in the mainstream media would explain to the public how referees who are lenient and permissive with physical play have an impact on the quality of football on the pitch. To the contrary, match after match, the broadcasting team covering a PL match, whether on location or in studio, can be depended on for the following: being a cheerleader for the team currently sitting atop the tables, bigging up the manager who has spent a lot of the owner's money, blaming modern rules for preventing today's players from being able to kick the shit out of the opposition, praising to high heavens the next up-and-coming English or British manager, despite the fact he or she, in this case a he, may likely to soon get the sack. And most of all, letting slip some juicy gossip about the comings and goings at one of the big clubs. There is very little, if any, performance analysis of the officials reffing the game, except puerile, moronic cliches such as "he kept the game flowing," whatever that means. Despite PL broadcasters within a stadium having access to at least 20 camera feeds, all from various angles. I'm yet to see or learn of a broadcaster who did a serious post-game review of the refereeing decisions. For example, rarely do they have a factual analysis of which decisions would have been overturned or sustained by VAR. Seems there's a rider in their contract with the PL to not expose mistakes and incompetence by the referees. Protection of the referees from criticism is near and dear to the PL. It is well known they have draconian rules with severe penalties for violators to prevent managers and players from publicly ripping the referees. This is typically under the guise of not bringing the game into disrepute. So it's not a stretch to assume that broadcasters who have contracts with the Premier League, that they are subject to similar provisions. It is therefore not surprising that the so-called journalists who do these broadcasts are derelict in their duty to report the truth about what they see and observe at a match. And this is the fundamentals of journalism. Instead, they engage in self-censorship and doublespeak, especially when it comes to the referees. It is left to a very rare number of bloggers to explain how the PGMOL has abandoned their duty to referee games without fear or favor. There is publicly available data demonstrating that the top PGMOL referees are ignoring the FIFA rules on reckless tackles and have become game managers par excellence. Atkinson, Dean, Marner, Moss, and Oliver have been the top officials for the past 5 years, assigned at least 20 PL games per season. Almost all have constantly reduced the number of red cards that they issued 5 years ago. The table is available in my blog. Although we are dealing with small fractions, 0.01%, the pattern across the board for almost all the senior referees, in concert with the PGMOL as a whole, is to award less red cards than they did 5 years ago. The only exception, by the way, is Atkinson. But in 2013-14, he barely awarded a penalty. So the only possible direction for him to go was up. Of course, the usual skeptics will poo-poo the numbers because they appear to be very marginal. But a 0.04% decrease in red cards per game worked out to a total of 14 less cards, from 53 to 39. This meant 14 less players were sent off, which in football would or could have had a significant impact on the final result of the applicable games. Can you imagine how that made certain stakeholders in the Premier League very, very happy? Concurrently, with the referees refusing to make the calls, apparently to satisfy those with financial and political power in the Premier League, drip by drip, percentage by percentage, the reputation of English refereeing is being chipped away. As usual, we at Unite for VAR refuse to be a part of the mute, dumb herd led by the mainstream media who are in awe of the PL and the PGMOL. Instead, we are proud to be the little voice in the crowd that dares to shout, "The Emperor has no clothes." This has been Shatta from UniteForVAR.com. Truth and rights every time.